Put your hand on it. Now say, talk to me.
Talk to me.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the movie Buffer. Tonight we're going to be discussing the movie Talk to Me. Talk to Me is a 2022 Australian supernatural horror film directed by Danny and Michael Philippou in their feature directorial debut, and written by Danny Philippou and Bill Hinzman, based on a concept of Daley Pearson. It stars Sophie Wilde, Alexandra Jensen, Joe Bird, Otis Dhanji, Miranda Otto, Zoe Terakes, Chris Alosio, Marcus Johnson, Alexandria Steffensen. The film follows a group of teenagers discovering they can contact spirits using a mysterious severed and embalmed hand. Yeah, it already sounds like a really bad idea. The movie starts by setting up the relationships of the characters. These were young adults, or teenagers, who grew up together, very close-knit, like siblings. I would say the story starts off a little slow, just getting to know everybody, but it is an important part of the movie, and it was interesting to me to understand the dynamics between each characters, because it does go into play later on in the movie to suggest why it was so critical of certain decisions to be made and why another person who is outside of the family would make a decision and be responsible for someone who is their friend but is thought of like family. So I thought that was important. But finally we do get to the actual hand where these kids get together and they do this little parlor game that evokes spirits. Right away, the ritual goes from fun antics to an obvious demonic possession, or at least spirits who do not have good intentions. They never say exactly how the kids came into contact with the hand, but it is clear that it is passed around from person to person, almost like the hand itself is trying to stay alive and active. So if one person uses it and then they realize, okay, this is not a good idea, then it gets passed on to somebody else. So, it just kind of goes from person to person. This is not a seance to evoke your long-lost loved one, but random spirits, which is horribly dangerous. People seem to think that supernatural interactions are not real, and I don't believe you can know that it's real unless you have had a very real experience with the supernatural. I have had many encounters, and I don't try to convince people. They have to have their own experience. Now, we are going to discuss the ritual of the hand. There will be a slight spoilers regarding what is happening in those scenes, so if you don't want to know, please stop here. I'm not going to be talking about the specific plot and, as the movie goes on or anything like that, just the ritual, okay? So if you want to continue and you're okay, let's continue. The spirit evocations in this movie, Talk to Me, are inspired by spiritualism and practices used to communicate with the dead. Here's how the movie's elements connect to the history of spirit evocation. The embalmed hand. Now, the embalmed hand, it comes from, as according to the movie, a medium who died or was killed or whatever, and it was embalmed, and someone chopped it off and started using it somehow. They don't explain this in the movie, and then that's how it all came about. And so it just gets passed on. The embalmed hand serves as a tangible object, a medium for spirits to interact with the living, kind of like a phone. In order for you to call your friend, you must have a phone in order to talk to them. So basically it's just a tool. Objects like spirit trumpets and spirit slate were believed to aid spirit communication. Now, when we talk about tangible objects, if you were trying to contact your loved one and a medium may say, do you have anything of theirs? And a lot of times if we do, you may have like dog tags of your loved one, or a lock of their hair, or you may have maybe just a picture of them. Anything that was personal that really represents them to you and to the person who has died. Just an object. It's like a talisman, something you can use to connect. So that's kind of what the embalmed hand represent, but a little bit more in the movie, but that's basically what it is. The ritual. The ritual involves touching the hand, saying, "Talk to me," and allowing oneself to be possessed. Similar to a medium channeling spirits. Bad idea. If you are not an actual medium, you should not be invoking or evoking a spirit. Those are two different things. Invoking and evoking. Invoking means bringing them into you. Evoking means you bringing them into your world. So you're not, or your dimension. So they're not possessing you, they're just a part of you. So anyway, seances, popular during the 19th century spiritualist movement, were gatherings where a medium would attempt to communicate with spirits, often entering a trance-like state. Now, you see how we're always saying medium in this? So, if you're not a medium, or, or someone who knows a lot about the occult, knows a lot about these rituals, the rules, all of that, and if you don't have anyone present who does know this stuff, you shouldn't be doing this. So, it's like a professional. It's kind of like filing your taxes. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm just filing taxes. I'm just filling out a form. But an actual CPA, a tax person, knows about this stuff and knows the ins and outs and the rules and whatever. They can help you because they know, well, you can get a refund here, or you can declare this. All these kinds of things you don't know because you're a layman. That's the difference. You need a medium. Anytime you decide you want to do anything like this, if there's not an actual medium present, don't participate. Now, in the movie, there was a 90-second limit, meaning once you touched the hand, you said, "Talk to me," a spirit came into you, possessed you, you only had 90 seconds. All right. The rule that the connection must be severed within 90 seconds is to prevent the spirits from overstaying and adds a sense of danger. It highlights the potential risk associated with spirit contact, a common theme in folklore and real-life accounts. Why is this important? If you've ever, first of all, never use a Ouija board. Just don't do it. Don't do what is being portrayed in this movie. Don't do that. But with a Ouija board, this is the best, kind of national, international thing most people know. Use a Ouija board. It says, you begin, and then in the end, you have to say goodbye. That closes or severs the connection. It's kind of like, again, on the phone, you say goodbye, you hang up, okay? So if you don't do that, the spirits are still there, and they're still possessing you or whoever, whatever the hell they want to do. So you have to say goodbye. So, and in this instance, in the movie, you had to stop. And I can't remember right now, but there is like a way to say goodbye to the spirit so they leave, okay? All right, so again, these are the rules that should be actually covered. Now, the focus of the possession. The film centers on possession by spirits who can interact with and potentially harm the living. Beliefs about possessions and the ability of spirits to inhabit human bodies have been present in various cultures and traditions. And but usually it's by a medium. And the reason why it's by a medium is because they are open to it. That's what they're made of. I mean, that they were born that way or whatever. So they know their psyche or whatever mind is open, more open than a normal person. Now, regarding possessions that are not wanted. Now, for a medium, they want the possession in order to make contact and communicate for, their client or whoever is their seance or whatever. But, of course, there have been stories of possessions which are usually done by demonic. They're not done by human spirits. They're done by demonic spirits. So that's something that usually ends up happening to young people. Because when you're born, for several years, maybe probably until you're about 10 and lower, you're more open to the world. Because it's actually how biologically you're set up to experience the world, to learn language, to learn how to do things, and how to interact with your environment. And your mother, usually, is your mother, is a person who is that's why most females are very intuitive, because they have to interact with the baby who cannot speak, and they don't know the language, and they don't know how to react. They only react kind of like in a sign language kind of a thing, and they cry or whatever. And the mother is able to communicate with that. So in other words, they're very open. So that's usually the situation, unless you are in this unfortunate situation where you actually do it on your own, which is insane. But that's what's happening in this story. It's just insane teenage crap. Instead of sleeping with some guy and getting pregnant, you are calling demonic and or other malevolent spirits to just come and hang out with you at your little stupid teenage party like it's nothing. The social media aspect, teenagers using spirit evocation as a party game and recording it for social media reflects the modern fascination with the paranormal. This element touches on the idea of seeking entertainment through the exploration of the supernatural, and I will even add exploitation of the supernatural. Okay. Now, in this particular situation, a lot of the spirits that were there and participating in this, they seem to have some sort of club or whatever on the other side, and they are connected to this hand. So most of them are malevolent, but not all of them are. Some of them are just spirits who happen to be there, So, but the teenagers are exploiting them, and then they're being used right back. So it's kind of a tit for tat kind of a situation. There's so many times in this movie you're like, what are you doing? Are you insane? There's so many times I was just screaming at the screen in my TV because I didn't even realize this movie had been out for so long, since 2022. I just started seeing it in 2024 in the Americas. But anyway, just crazy, crazy stuff that you would just go, why are you doing this? Like in most horror movies, like, why are you going to look for this entity or person in the basement where you're trapped? Why aren't you leaving the fucking house? So there's a lot of that in this movie. It's like, what is wrong with these people? Now, the inspiration and the mythology of this particular movie, the filmmakers developed a mythological Bible to create a backstory for the spirits and their motivations, revealing their history. The spirits in Talk to Me have their own stories and reasons for seeking contact. Talk to Me borrows from the history of spiritualism, incorporating elements like the concept of a medium, spirit communication rituals, and the idea of possession to create a horror story. So basically, they use the basics, horror story trope. For my review for this movie, I did find it interesting. I really did. I am a horror. That's my genre of writing and everything. I'm a writer, so I'm into that. That's what I write. And also that's what I am a constant reader of, Stephen King, and I am a card-carrying member of Constant Readers. That's part of, who I am. But for a lot of, these stories, and this particular story too, they use a lot of sensationalism. I thought in this particular movie, there wasn't a lot of like jump scares and weirdness. I mean, there were some things that were kind of, weird. Of course, it's a horror story. But I don't think they went that route. Maybe because It was Australian. It was a kind of a different vibe than, American horror stories. But I really felt that the story was told well. I thought the characters were fleshed out really well. I appreciated the backstories of the relationships, which, as I said, was important to the film. It was a bit, cheesy in a lot of spaces. So it does give you that. But I found it very entertaining, and I do recommend, if you like, horror, definitely watch this movie. The actors were great. I thought they were really, really good. So I would check out Talk to Me. Leave a comment if you've seen it and what did you think about it. And I thought it was really good. So I recommend this movie. So please leave your comments below. Please make sure to subscribe and like, which is free. You can do it. It's no big deal. But it helps me out tremendously. Also, share the video to people of who may enjoy this type of thing. And as always, peace, 2 fingers.